right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Can of Worms. Can of Worms is a podcast hosted by yours truly, myself, Jolina Can, and Jack Can, also known as Jose Can. We talk about topics that are current, whether popular, controversial, or just plain interesting with subject matter experts or those with unique perspectives. And in each episode, we will open a can, not knowing what will come out or what will emerge from that discussion. So today, we will open the can of well-being, and we are joined by some distinguished guests today. We have Dax Cobarrubias, our mindfulness guru, and Lourdes Fabia, a mental health advocate. So I want to give this opportunity for Dax and Lourdes to say hi. Maybe Dax, you can start.
Yes, hello and good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me, Jack and Joss. I'm excited to be here today.
Thanks, Dax. And Lourdes.
Good morning, everyone. Because I work for a company called Jollibee, we say Jolly Morning. So
Jolly
Jolly morning.
there you go.
Actually, Lourdes, maybe you can share a bit about your background, and then Dax, you can do the same, just so our audience knows how you are a mental health advocate and a mindfulness guru.
All right. So let me make it a brief story. So essentially, I'm an HR practitioner, just like Jules, right? So and I think Jack also. So I've lived my how many 20 plus years of work life, career life in multinational, living here and in other countries doing HR work. However, at some point in my HR work career, I figured out I wanted to do something else beyond just the corporate HR. And that's where I found my new passion on mental health. Only also because I lived with mental health. It's a lived experience for me. I had my own mental health struggle, especially when I was posted in Australia. And that's where I studied mental health to be a better HR practitioner and then brought it here to the Philippines. So while I'm still employed right now with a company called Jollibee Foods Corporation, I still do a lot of work around mental health, well-being coaching, and really in any way I can help other people on this space. So that's who I am.
Thank you, Lourdes. And Jack is using his
Yeah, I
reactions with
see.
a V.
Right.
There you go. And how about you, Dax? What's your story? Maybe you can share with the audience.
Well, I've been in wellness since 2010 when I switched careers as a yoga teacher. So 2010. And talaga I focus on mindfulness starting 2015. And the reason for that nga is prior to being mental wellness advocate, I was in the academy. So I was teaching for 10 years, business management, something that I enjoyed very much, very passionate about, mentoring young people. But at one point, I got into burnout. Really burnout. There was at that one point that there was nothing else to give. So similar to Lourdes, I also had my mental health challenges. In fact, I was diagnosed with mental illness. So 19 years ago. So almost 20 years now. And it was at that point now wherein I discovered yoga and meditation. And that was what switched me. And when I found out that was like the winning formula for me to win over my mental illness, I decided to switch careers. So it's still in the classroom, but changing it, changing the audience.
So it's interesting to see that, because the both of you had such personal experiences with mindfulness, mental health, it became something you're very passionate about and something you want to share and teach with others. But, in line with that, based on your own observations, what would you say is the level of knowledge or acceptance of well-being as a concept and as a practice right now? I know it became kind of more, it got more emphasis as a result of the pandemic, but where is it now, you think?
All
Anyone
right.
can start?
Yeah, okay, let me start, Dax, right? So, well, at least let's talk about Philippines in general. I think the mental health law was instrumental in really pushing companies to be able to talk about mental health in the workplace, right? But I still believe that we're still far behind in, making really mentally healthy workplaces. And so coming back to the corporate right now, I have a hands-on experience with how is it going, how are companies talking about mental health. So right now, I'll speak in general, not about my company, but in general. I think the law is just somehow still on paper. There are many opportunities to improve how this is going for many organizations. I do handle live cases, and it's the one thing that probably is so I don't know, I call it like I wish there is a solution for it is the treatment is not easily accessible to many because it's still expensive to get the treatment. That is my biggest wish, to democratize health, no, for our people, so everyone can get access to that. So what if I am diagnosed with mental health illness, or could I even get a proper assessment? That's really hard. But the upside also of the things right now is, yes, Jackie, you're right. I mean, pandemic has really given us space to give attention to mental health. And this upcoming generation, they're so educated about it. And so they're gonna really push the workplaces, the community, the society to that we really focus on doing something. So those are the things that I've discovered in the past 2 to 3 years.
Thank you, Lourdes. How about you, Dax?
In line with what Lourdes is saying, when I have participants who are younger, they are really open. So, for example, if I ask a question, who among you has tried meditation or mindfulness or yeta yoga? You always see young people raising their hands. So, I noticed that they're more open to it rather than the older generation. And however, but you will notice also for those who are doing it, they have the same language, they read the same book, so there's immediate connection. And what I appreciate also with there's a lot of hope now with young people because they're really looking for it. It's like one of the things that they look for when they find employment them. And I can see now the workplace is changing because once they start taking over, it's going to be something that's going to be very, I think, common or mainstream in the workplace.
I'm excited for that time, Dax.
Mhm.
I really hope that happens sooner than later. Now, we
Right.
have while all of us are based in the Philippines, but we do have a global audience. I know, Lourdes, you were talking about the law in the Philippines, but do
Yeah.
you have any views, either of you, from a global perspective? Like, is it as important globally as we feel it here in the
Right.
Philippines?
I think it's really because of the pandemic. It has really kind of given us the reset button, people to reconsider what's important. And so that's the upside of the pandemic. So yes, globally, I think a bigger attention is on this one. I mean, you have many organizations also have kind of, I don't know, started during the pandemic helping organizations. I've seen companies globally having like your chief well-being officers really driving these things, and I'm excited. That's actually my dream role, a
Mhm.
global well-being officer.
Let's make it happen.
Uh, but also, there depending on the country's law, some are more advanced, really, right? It's really
Right.
protected. Discrimination is really taken seriously in many Western countries. So that really helps. And so to me, those are really, I think, what's happening also globally.
How about you, Dax?
Yeah, for me, what I noticed or what's interesting in the international audience, it's different. There are some, you can see sometimes we are even more advanced with the language, with our different mindfulness teachers, because you could see that if another international audience, it's the typical you're in monk's robes, closing your eyes, so it's the parang the
Eastern.
Instagram version
Yeah, yeah.
of meditation or mindfulness. So it's interesting whether you have either in Asia or Europe or the US, and it's still you still start with the foundations, and everyone still gets their aha moments with the foundations.
That's true. And building on what Lourdes was saying, I do remember seeing some business articles that do talk about chief wellness officers, and there are even some cultures and some companies that say that you can actually take a mental leave, for example.
Mhm.
Like
That's right.
it's not valid for taking a day off if you need some
Yes.
space, or if you're on the verge of burnout. It's no longer you have to be sick to not go to
Right.
work. Now
Exactly.
people can say, I can take a mental day.
Right.
Cool.
Right. Well, yeah. Some countries are comfortable. People are comfortable with that. Here, not yet. So some other countries would say still a sick leave, right?
Yeah.
So that's the evolution. I think with what you said, with businesses appointing now chief wellness officers, I think the message is the well-being of people is as equally important agenda as your business objective, as your sales objective. And that's, I think, happening in many workplaces, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's true. The thing is though, and for Dax was saying, for younger audiences, they kind of get it the moment you say mental health, mindfulness, well-being. I'm just curious though, if there's like a standard definition, or some kind of working definition, because you know how it is, it becomes a buzzword and then
Yeah.
people interpret it in different ways. Like Dax was saying, for some people they say mindfulness, they picture a monk, going under a tree. For others, they say mental health. It's literally only if you have some kind of diagnosed
Mm.
illness or disorder. So, is how would you define what well-being is? What does mindfulness and mental health have to play in our overall state?
Mm.
Maybe Dax, you can start this time.
Yeah, me really, for me it's mindfulness. It's more, when you ask me what mindfulness is, it's really awareness, consciousness, being present. But to me, I like the definition of Dr. Amishi Jam, and she said na mindfulness is paying attention to what matters most. And so parang it's very active, and then you know what to do. And in line with well-being, di ba? Kasi for me, well-being really is parang your ability to be productive, to have fruitful relationships, di ba? Following your purpose, di ba? So um, combine it with what matters most, so mindfulness helps amplify well-being.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Cool.
So for me, because really it's the well-being piece for me. There are many definitions, and you reach a point like to simplify it, right? So personally, well-being is really for me having this agency to handle and navigate through the stresses of life, having the agency and the tools. Because there will always be stressors, there will always be challenges, struggles, right? The question is, and I don't want to even use resilience because sometimes it's overused already, that it's
Right.
enduring things. But resilience also means I can do things that will allow me to recover. So it's about recharging and recovery and mindfulness and being able to pay attention to what matters most. So in summary, well-being is really, to me, having the agency to be able to navigate the challenges of life. Like I have the tools with me to achieve that
Mhm.
thriving state that, I'm not, I'm not really 100%, let's just say, super happy, but I'm feeling fulfilled. I'm able to, manage my roles in life as a mother, as a wife, as a worker. And to me, that's all encompassing of the well-being piece.
Mm,
If
yeah.
I could follow up, Lourdes, I'm glad you mentioned resilience, and this question kind of popped into my head when you said that. How do we strike that balance between mental health, mindfulness, well-being, and resilience?
Right.
Is it something that can they coexist together? Because I'm pretty sure there are some people who are like, if Dax goes to me and says, Jack, I feel burnt out. I need to take some space for my mental health and well-being. And in my head, I might be like, is it because Dax is not resilient? Therefore, he is like this? Yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Lourdes? Especially in the
Right.
corporate sense.
Yes. Okay. So, and to me, that's my biggest aha also, learning about mental health, because I lived my life believing I'm a resilient person. And that definition meant work is my life. And that meant I'm like 24 by 7 operating and available for everyone for many years until you discover that's not sustainable. And so under the umbrella of resilience, is that bucket of, it's also about, it's an article that appeared in HBR. Resilience is not just about enduring things, but it's also about recharging and recovering. And I thought that changed the way I look at resilience. And that's where mindfulness, all these things that allow me to recover comes in. So it's not, then I started not feeling guilty about vacations or just really taking time for myself, knowing that it's time to rest, knowing that, okay, you can't do everything in one go, in one sitting. So to me, I hope that helps reframe things on resilience.
Yes, especially if you define well-being as having the resources to navigate life, as you
Yeah.
were saying earlier. And so part of
Yes.
having the resources is self-care.
Yes.
That's what gives you that energy to take care of yourself, so
That's
that you
right.
can face the challenges. I
Yeah.
remember, thriving does not mean struggle-free.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
That's
by
from one
having
of our
our
talks.
yes, so that's why well-being is so important. And
Exactly.
connected to that, actually, there are a lot of misconceptions, and I think you've shared one of the very important things that maybe we may not know about well-being or mindfulness. But for you, what do you think will surprise our viewers about mindfulness or mental health? Like, what myths do we need to overcome? And maybe this time, Dax, we can start with you.
Oh yeah, I'll start. Okay, again, when it comes to mindfulness, the monk is
Right.
under the body tree nga, but like yesterday, so I had a session, team building, but what did we do? Chocolate meditation. So it's not this. It's eating chocolate. And so everyone was surprised because it was when I got there, the audience really thought na okay, we were just going to be quiet and sit in a lotus position. But when I took out the chocolates, but everyone was so happy, and we did a chocolate meditation. And after that, there was so many aha moments. Now, and then the bottom line is, if you can have a mindful moment or a pause with a piece of chocolate, then anything can be mindful. So they were talking about traffic. Oh, so instead of getting rattled during traffic, make that your meditation. I mean, so anything can now be a pause. So this, if you can design it with a piece of chocolate, then you can, and that makes mindfulness now exciting.
I love
I like
that.
that. So I'm gonna call them now PlayStation pauses, Switch pauses,
Yes.
lechon meditation.
Anything like that, yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Lourdes?
Hold on. Let me just post this one here. It's possible to experience poor mental health without a mental health condition, right? Because I think what we're trying to break is the stigma around, mental health. Sometimes people think mental health means mental health illness, which is not the case. Mental health is really just like a physical health term, right? It's neutral. I have physical health, you have mental health. But sometimes if you ask people, how's your mental health? And say, oh no, nothing's wrong with me. And it's really, it's a definition that's not very clear to everyone. So on the other side, I'm posting it here. So for our audience as well, it is possible to have a mental health condition and still experience well-being. So
true.
I have worked with people where Lourdes, I'm bipolar, and I would say I have no idea that you're bipolar, right? Like, and so how are you managing? Is that I have psychiatrist, I have my meds, and so on the days I need to rest. So, and that person, for example, just one of many, has revealed that to me. 6 months after working with her, and so that's why we have to be mindful. We may not be ill, but we may not having the illness doesn't mean we are totally well.
That's
So
true.
let's be clear with that, right? That's why the regular check-in of how am I doing? How am I stress level these days? It's so important to do those checks. So these two statements, I hope, will somehow again help people reframe things around mental health.
That's true. I love how the analogy to physical health is, because you can say I'm physically tired, but not
Exactly.
have any kind of disability or injury or
Yes.
impediment. I'm just tired. My muscles ache. I've been walking around the whole day.
Yes.
And from a mental health perspective, I've dealt with so much stress the past couple of weeks. There's no injury or condition, but I'm just
Right.
mentally tired.
Just to build on the physical one. So if you see somebody who's probably I don't know, had a broken leg or arm and coming to office, we would immediately extend the help, right? Like we would
That's
assist the
true.
person. But if somebody tells you, I have, let's just say I'm diagnosed with depression, all right, as an example, will be frozen or would not even have a conversation with that person.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's
That's
true.
true. And maybe it's because it's part of maybe lack of knowledge. Like if someone has a broken arm, you instinctively know you get things for them, you help reach. It's something we understand. But if someone
Mhm.
says I've been diagnosed with depression, because we don't have the knowledge
Mhm.
or the information to treat it, there's the willingness to help, but you don't know
Yeah.
how.
Yeah. And I would add that, we've spoken about physical health and then we were talking about mental health. Even our emotional health and our spiritual health is the
Yep,
same. Like you can
exactly.
get tired serving others, diba? That's your spiritual
Mhm.
health, your purpose. You also need to recharge that. And even emotionally, right?
That's true.
um yeah, we need to engage with things that we love. And so all of that come together.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. So, okay, time for some personal moments,
Mhm.
right? So, can you recall a time in your past where you had to face a challenge and maybe it was a bit difficult at that point in time for your younger self? If you could tell something to your younger self about how they faced that challenge and how to better manage their well-being, what would you tell them? And we'll go with Lourdes first this time.
All right. How young will we go now?
Any.
Up to you.
Just kidding.
Your call.
Okay, no, just kidding. It's a good one, right? So I think one of the things that am still living with now is imposter syndrome, right? And at the time, I don't know that this is called imposter syndrome. And I think we all have this little voice, a critic that
Yeah.
is just there. And so I lived with that for many years. And if I had the agency at the time, I would probably just give a name to that imposter syndrome, give more space for that syndrome, allow that, hold space for that, but also have the reframing yeah, I would rather have self empowering statements for myself to help me through that. Like, because these are all like,
Mm.
oh, you're not good enough, you do not deserve that achievement and all those things. But you can have right now, and that's what I teach with my clients, with my coaches, like, these are all thoughts and they may not be true. And so if there's one statement that is so powerful for me that I always use is because imposter syndrome limits you to doing things right now. It's like you don't
Yes.
deserve that, you don't, etc. You have weaknesses. And so my statement is what's the risk of doing it? What's the risk of not doing it? Rather, they will judge you anyway.
I
Hmm,
like that.
that's true.
That's true.
So I will still do it because I will be judged anyway. But right before, when I was young, it's all about, oh, people will judge me, people will say this. But honestly, no one cares. No one would have time for that. You just think that people think of you that way, but no. so so that to me is something I use every day.
I love that. How about you, Dax?
All right. So if I were to travel back in time, let's say I have my
Yeah.
DeLorean, di ba? All right. So di ba, I will go back to 2003. And kasi I think the struggle during my clinical depression, social anxiety disorder phase, was at that point, it felt like it was going to be forever. Parang I was going to
Mhm.
go to therapy forever,
True.
meds forever. And one thing that works for me, I think they're very deliberative and futuristic, is I need timeline. So if I were to travel back in time, I will just say to my younger self, 4 years. Yeah. I won't even tell a date, but just say 4 years. Diba? Whatever. So experience, even go to
It's
your lowest point, but it's 4 years now. After 4 years, okay. But I won't even tell them what's going to happen in 4 years. Diba? The
Ah,
4 years was discovering the mindfulness and meditation and yoga. So just
That's
four
true.
years. So at least now there's going to be a surprise in 4 years.
I'm curious, Dax, that instead why wouldn't you like give yourself specific advice? Like, why is there anything that went through that journey was so pivotal and important that you would live through it again?
Yeah, because I think for example, let's say when the pandemic hit, right? And when everything lockdown hit that first week, um I had a freeze moment, but it was very short. But I was able to I get pivot immediately. Why? Because I was in that space for 4 years. So when I saw this happening in a global scale, okay, so it's happening again, but I know what's going to come up next then. Diba? So I know
Right.
parang what the 4 years will look like. Diba? So parang, okay, I know that it's going to be better soon. So it was easier for me to pick myself up. So I
I
don't
like
want to, so I don't want to spoil anything. Diba?
Yeah.
So para at least it will still give me that I guess it became wisdom now. The experience became wisdom later on.
Yeah.
true.
Because it's really part of the journey. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And and I like how when you were initially told and diagnosed, your first impression was this is forever kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
And again, that's also a good analogy for physical things. For example, you're told you're diabetic. You're thinking that's it, forever I'm diabetic. But the reality is, if you manage your diet, if you exercise regularly, you don't need to take maintenance medicines.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're
Right.
told you're hypertensive, but same thing, if you manage yourself, if you do the right steps to maintain your physical health, you will no longer need to take maintenance medicines for hypertension, diabetes, whatever. Same thing with mental health. If you're diagnosed with something, as long as you take the proper treatment, you can live with it and actually thrive still with it. So I love that. Uh, and I think that will probably be a nice way to help introduce the idea. It's really nothing different from a physical thing. It's just, except rather than happening in your body, it's happening in your head. It's
Right.
hormones and chemicals and other things. Cool.
Yep.
Okay,
And
so
let's
yes, sir.
emphasize what you said, Jack, that it's just that we don't have the language for it. We don't have the vocabulary for it. And so
Right.
I
Yeah.
think in the past 2 years with the work that we had to do on well-being, I think it's because I had to kind of reflect on the pandemic years, and it led me to thinking we didn't do anything apart from normalizing emotions around this.
Right.
And there are three things: giving them the words and the labels and the vocabulary,
Yes.
and assure people with a what I call but it's almost like optimism and hope. So those three things, like on the space of mental health, right? So yeah.
I love it. Okay. So final question, and this is more of a call to action
Mm-hmm.
out there. Because there might be some people who are watching slash listening to this podcast who are just at the beginning. So maybe, yeah, they're struggling with the vocabulary, with the language, with the experience. And so they're starting on their journey to better well-being, whether it's well-being for themselves or understanding what the concept is. What is one thing you can suggest or advise to them that can help them get started on their journey? And we can start with Lourdes this time.
All right. Okay. So I think one is to really educate. I mean, personally, I had to study. I had to really equip myself because I've never studied that in university. I never had that during my any of my HR training sessions. So really study is so important. But like I said, this is becoming more available now with access to data online for many younger generations. Um, but the other advice I would also tell people is, this is a journey, and in that journey of the well-being, you will discover things that will work for you, because not everyone would like, for example, meditation. Not everyone
Right.
would like breathing exercise. So find what works for you. But the key is to be consistently stay in the journey
Right.
for that well-being.
Thank you for that.
Right. I'll build on that, Lourdes. Diba? So how to be consistent. So if I were to say to my younger self 4, I'm going to give an audience these 3 numbers, 10, 6, 3. Okay. So how to be consistent. So do something that you're fully present with your 5 senses for 10 minutes. Minimum 10 minutes a day. If you have more than 10 minutes, perfect, but minimum 10 minutes. That's your 10-minute me time or pause time. Eventually, what will happen is, because when we get we're triggered by something, the emotion is strongest in 6 seconds. So the more you do your 10 minutes, what happens in those 6 seconds? Like what Lourdes is saying, feel it, label it, notice it. And what do you do as you do that? You breathe 3 times. Yeah.
Nice. 10, 6,
10,
3.
6,
I
3.
love that.
So 10 minutes, 6 seconds, and 3 breaths.
3 breaths.
Nice.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Lourdes, Dax, for spending this time with us. I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of Jack and myself that we picked up so many things just having this, this discussion with you. Thank you for all that you do in the spaces of mental health, mindfulness, and well-being. And I'm sure our audience has also picked up a lot of things. So really, really appreciate that. Any last words before we end? Maybe you can start with Lourdes first, then Dax.
Last words, right? To me, life, we are blessed with life, right? And it's for us to savor it. So make time for savoring life.
Nice.
Yeah, and to get started, to make time for saving life, do not make it complicated. If you do not have 10 minutes, 1 minute is better than 0 minutes. So make it easy for you. If you're gonna do it every day, then just do it 5 times a week. Yeah, so always have that leeway for you to make it always easy and doable.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that's something that Jack and myself will also try to practice moving forward. And with that, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
opening a can of well-being for us on behalf of Jack and myself. Thank you for joining us today. And to our audience, until next time. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.